My name's Tim. I was asked by the Eating Issues Centre to help make a film about who they are, what they do, and the successes of some of the more radical aspects of their treatment approaches. This sounded fascinating, but I have to admit I was a little daunted. I realised I didn't know much about eating issues at all, much less about their treatment or about recovery. I thought about it. In today's world, most disadvantaged minorities can find a platform to have a fairly loud voice, or at least someone to speak for them. But eating issues, for me anyway, still seem kind of invisible. It still seems there's a lot of stigma around eating issues, and the plight of those suffering still isn't really being talked about. As a result, all the preconceptions, judgments, myths, and inaccurate portrayals are still holding strong across society, to the extent that I found I shared a lot of them myself. This was a wake-up call, but not as much as when I first started hearing people's actual stories. These stories were fascinating, but I learned that on the whole, they're just not being told. We spent 4 days interviewing artists, doctors, TEIC staff, and most importantly, people in recovery themselves, including some who've now become peer supporters or mentors for those still struggling. Over these sessions, I met some truly amazing, inspiring, empowered people and learned a lot about the process of recovery along the way. Pretty much straight away, a huge door opened for me as I began to understand the bigger picture and see how people's individual stories are all part of the whole, and how recovery can be a springboard into a richer, fuller, more productive and creative life than the person might have ever experienced or even believed was possible. The beginning of a journey rather than the end. I discovered how, by seeing eating issues not just as medical problems, but as broader social issues, which can be looked at holistically and creatively, true recovery can be achieved. By seeing the whole person, respecting their journey, listening to their story, and deciding to really value their worth as a member of our society, and stop seeing them just as statistics, empowers you and me as much as it does them. It's not difficult, it's just a big shift. By debunking myths and challenging perceptions, we suddenly see people as individuals who are an important part of the bigger whole. By not being afraid to approach the challenge of eating issues in new, brave and creative ways, we can move towards healing the whole person. We can even heal ourselves. And as individuals, we can begin to effect social change and do our bit towards healing the world.
Change hurts, we're not perfect. But parts of us are excellent. Change hurts, we're not perfect. But parts of us are excellent. Change hurts, we're not perfect. But some of us are, and suddenly something deeper than relief. At the evening's end, we started out as friends, and suddenly.
So there's been such a perception that those who are acutely unwell are unable to contribute, that they're consumers of the system, and that they basically are just leeching and needing of all kinds of resources and supports, but are unable to really be effective in contributing.
I had fully believed, and I had installed this in myself, that I was untreatable. We overheard a conversation between the nurses asking as to why I was still here and why I was wasting a bed when there were still other people that could utilise the bed and the unit that had not done this to themselves, that they were, I guess the word was, more worthy to be here, while here I was just wasting a bed and I had no power at all. So I really did not see that I had done this to myself, let alone was able to help myself.
So the myths are, I think, that eating disorders happen to people who want to have an eating disorder. It's all their fault. They could recover if they want to, and they're not really very serious anyway. That's all not true, but even unconsciously, I think a lot of people believe that, even people with eating disorders. The truth is that eating disorders are your average person's, I think, response to the culture we live in, which says from a very young age, you should be judged by how you look, you need to look like this, and if you don't, it's because you're lazy and you're not working hard enough, and you should hate this body until you get it to the shape, which is impossible. And so I think the message is that recovery is possible, and you can be free of the prison of judging your worth based on numbers to find a life full of freedom and joy and happiness.
Everybody's calling.
16 years old and pulled out of school and started a whole circle of hospitalisations. So in this time I had 28 admissions while I was in the midst of an eating disorder. During this time my parents grew, because it wasn't just a journey for me, it was for them as well. They thought that it just started off as a response of maybe a spoilt kind of brat act, because there was nothing wrong with our dynamic, everything had always gone right. I had a different experience with the medical kind of field. It just wasn't working for me, and we just agreed it was best with my medical team at the moment that we cease sort of their care, and at that time it was best for me to go home, and basically to pass away at home was the best option from the team.
Look how hard you fall. Still you're too tangled up.
Like most people, I thought that once you'd been treated, you're probably pretty much okay again and you could leave your eating issue behind and resume normal life as if nothing had happened. I quickly learned that this couldn't be further from the truth, and that's not a bad thing. It turns out recovery is a subtle and complex personal journey which becomes part of your story as a human being. It's a learning curve, a commitment, and an ongoing process. Recovery is not actually about becoming more of anything. It's about discovering that who you are is enough, and that your uniqueness is what's needed. It's about learning how to be with ourselves and others, rather than being in competition with or feeling less than other people.
And I don't want to keep this going forever.
Linking between mental health support services and users is extremely important, because we do know best. The service user does know best, and they have to be the person to write their story and to be able to recover. So, yeah.
Once the journey of recovery begins, with help from TEIC, people find themselves in a new place, welcomed and heard rather than being questioned and judged, trusted rather than being doubted, having the option to take on caring roles themselves rather than simply being seen as patients.
And I don't want to keep this going forever.
It was this open door to a safe space which became a huge turning point for so many people we spoke to.
I would have looked at me now and said, I'll never be like that. She's someone that I won't ever be, because I'm too unwell and I don't have any connections, and how can I build up to somebody like that? I feel a much fuller person by coming to TEIC, because there's a sense of acknowledgement of my whole person, instead of perhaps sometimes in the community there's this sense that I have to hide part of my journey because of the perception that can be portrayed from having an eating disorder and what that might say about me. And I think by being in a place where I can actually acknowledge who I am and my journey, and who I am irrespective and because of my journey, that I'm actually a fuller, more empowered person because of that.
are coming from a feminist perspective. They offer a range of evidence-based relational treatments, including interpersonal therapy, group work, and a peer mentor program. These approaches are sometimes still considered radical as they break away from manualised and inpatient treatment models in quite a big way. I didn't really understand the impact these treatments had at first, but it didn't take me long to realise that, for example, by levelling the playing field somewhat between the health facilitator and the person they're treating, by breaking away from the confines of the traditional approach, it broadens the field of possible outcomes immeasurably. This is hugely important, and in a way it's a lesson for us all. However evolved and smart we think we are, there'll always be room for more creative solutions to the problems we face. Established procedures can always be called into question and improved upon. It's a valid and important job as citizens to look for improvement in ourselves and in the world. It's good to be reminded of this. If we want positive change, it's up to us to find ways to make it happen.
We provide opportunities for people to become leaders in this community. So rather than treating sick people, about recognising that everybody has the potential to be a leader, no matter where you are at in your journey, that it's possible to recover.
Smiling to the camera.
I think I find TEIC an incredibly special environment and very unique environment because it's really the first community or family that I've really encountered where it's been an acknowledgement of who I am as a person and it's safe to be who I am, but not only that, but to share who I am with others. And there's such a sense of beauty in bringing people together from all stages of our recovery journey, in that sense of we all have so much to offer no matter where we are in that journey.
Having people of all different stages of recovery and having people in the room who understand what you're talking about so you don't have to kind of fill them in on the background made such a difference. And to know that there were people who'd been through where you were at the moment or something similar and they'd gotten to a point where they didn't feel that way anymore gave you that sense of hope that this is not something you just had to deal with, it was something that could be changed.
Smile at nothing.
I think what something's really special about TEIC is that from a personal perspective, when I was still starting off on my recovery journey, the idea that somebody could recover or was recovered was unimaginable, was unbelievable. I didn't know people who had recovered or could, and therefore I didn't really associate that as a possibility. And I think that's something beautiful that TEIC offers, is that connection with people who are in their recovery journey that demonstrate the possibility. And I think there's something beautiful about connecting people at different stages of recovery because it provides that sense of, I'm not alone in this, and look how far people can go. I need to keep doing this because it will get me somewhere eventually.
It gave me the strength to explore my options and see the strengths that I do have. I know that there are people that are open and honest and just provide support, which helps me feel valued and cared for, and that there truly is hope out there.
The books about feminism, eating disorder theories, politics, all those things made me feel connected, as I had found a place where I belong to. People who I have met here, the only people I have, my family, so it means a lot to me.
When I met Ali, I just felt that she is so different. She's not trying to prescribe me something, but just to let me discover myself. Sorry. So, very safe, and I found someone I really feel happy to be me. So.
Last month, TEIC launched their artistic workshop program, designed to push clients in a creative direction as well as slightly out of their comfort zones. One in particular, Big Body Play Labs, a life drawing class, had a profound effect on those who attended, as well as the model, Barbara, herself a recovered eating issue sufferer. So what happens when you bring a group of women with body image and eating issues together to do a life drawing class?
I did want to know the right way to be with the women, because I wasn't sure what journeys they were on in their recovery, because I know how, I felt when I was in full-blown eating issues. It's a very isolating, very uncomfortable place to be, so I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable. It was great to be reassured that I just needed to be exactly how I was and feel confident and just make sure they knew that I felt safe.
Almost everyone said they were very nervous. They didn't know what to expect. They weren't sure if their own artistic abilities was also something they were worried about.
I hadn't really drawn for years, and I wasn't sure if I could do it. And yeah, it wasn't easy, but it was okay.
I appreciate the human body 100% for everything that it does. And it is a beautiful thing, but seeing someone with no clothes on sort of scared me.
The words she described of not being able to look at me initially, that she didn't want to look at me, and it was extremely challenging for her. I thought how amazing that two women could share that moment, that I could be present with her. And I think that's what it's about in true healing, is if you can be present with that person. I didn't have to fix her, I just had to be.
Once she took her piece of material off, I just could not look at her. Yeah, I was really at first struggling with the idea of just placing my eyes on someone else's body. It did not feel right. I felt like I was doing the wrong thing.
But afterwards, everyone, I think it was 100% of respondents, felt positive about the experience. People said they felt better about their own bodies. One said that the experience would be helpful towards healing her own eating issues. There was definitely a sense of being empowered by just being a part of that activity.
Like my vessel or my ship that carries me, my soul, like it's a body and there's nothing wrong with it.
She did share that she had made a great transformation, and at the end of the night she, from not being able to look at me, came up and embraced me and shared from her heart how she felt and thanked me. And so for me that's Yeah, just really powerful stuff.
People with eating issues aren't that different from everyone else. They're not crazy, selfish, vain, or stupid. These are just myths. I found those we spoke with to be intelligent, sensitive, insightful, and humble people. People who just needed a way to deal with their pain. I learned so much in making this film. I learned that myths are not only inaccurate, they're also dangerous for two reasons. Myths put people in boxes, and they make us feel different to those people or superior, that we have nothing in common with them. And myths also place the blame for someone's problems right back on them. They completely ignore that personal struggles are often a symptom of much broader problems in our world. If we deny this, we're denying the chance for healing to occur on a wider scale, and for society to become kinder as a whole. People aren't somehow worth less because of their vulnerabilities. I've seen that vulnerabilities can end up being our strengths when we learn from them and use them wisely.
Suffer alone is painful, and to be able to know that you're not alone and you're accepted, and that to follow that human urge to create, to celebrate that creative self, and through story and song and art and music, that's how we work out who we are, that's how we express our pain, that's how we express our joy.
If she really told the full story, would he still be there the next morning, or would he walk away as she fell down? Before she would have given her full self, but now she's so tired and you